Should we get going?
Yeah, let's get started. Hi, everyone.
Excellent. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Hope you're all keeping safe and as well as can be. It's it's obviously a bit of a shame we're having to do this under sort of, I guess, current circumstances. But considering so many of us are in the same boat and having to do this for the first time, we thought it'd be good to just get our heads together and really share some advice. I think luckily we're in an age where technology means we're able to adapt pretty quick and actually able to work remotely. But what we wanted to do is delve a little deeper into, I guess, the human aspect of it all and just share some advice on how you and your teams can stay motivated, how you can keep your team spirits up and also some best practice around leadership whilst working remotely. We've got a really broad mix of, I think, people and skill sets joining in. So we've got a mix of developers, we've got salespeople, project managers, business owners. But hopefully what Shauna's put together, I think will be relevant to all. And the hope is that really everyone can come away with at least a few actionable points and things to focus on over the coming weeks. We do want to keep this as interactive and as informal as possible. So if anyone has any questions or thoughts as we run through this, just pop them into the chat box via Zoom and we'll work through what we can. We've had a few questions coming in advance as well, so we'll work through those. And then if there's anything that we don't have time to get to, we'll just answer what we can in a follow-up email, along with some content and a recording of the session. For anyone who couldn't join us live. In terms of format, so we'll do a couple of introductions and then Shauna's going to spend just 10 to 15 minutes running through a few slides. But as I say, I want to keep as much time as we can really to answering your questions. So keep them coming and as I say, let's keep it really as interactive as possible. So to introduce myself, I'm Rob Beattie, part of the partner team at Klarna here in the UK. So I work with a range of technology partners, agencies and various SIs in the e-commerce ecosystem. Pretty new to Klarna, but I've been working in the e-commerce world for a few years. And in terms of my role, I mean, typically I'll be based from home maybe a couple of days a week, but really used to spending a lot of time out and about and in front of partners. So it's been an interesting week or so, and definitely having to adapt pretty quick. There's been a lot of virtual coffees and beers, which has helped keep me sane. Shauna, I'm going to hand over to you. Thank you so much for getting involved and helping pull this together at such short notice. Do you want to introduce yourself and I guess we can dive in from there?
Yeah, sounds good, Rob. First of all, thanks for having me and thanks for joining everybody. As Rob mentioned, the changes over the last couple of weeks have been very uncertain and difficult for everybody. And I think no matter what position you're in, whether you're already a remote worker or not, you still have to adapt. During these times, everybody has to adapt. Everybody has to change their routines. Even for me, I've worked remotely for over 7 years and I still have to adapt my routines because, they depended a lot on co-working spaces and gyms and coffee shops. So we're all in this together. And when Rob and I first spoke about remote working, last week around how we can help the Klarna partner ecosystem, I really wanted to put together some content that's going to empower you guys to actually think for yourselves, because there's no one size fits all with remote work. It really is about creating a strategy that's authentic to your team and that looks at the long-term play, because the other thing is we don't know how long we're going to be working like this. So hopefully today it is going to be very interactive. So I'd like you to, chat with each other in the chat window, tell me your ideas, tell me what's working, what isn't working, ask questions, because it's that power of community that can really help each other. So for those of you who don't know me, I did see a lot of familiar faces and names signed up. I run a consultancy and coaching practice called Operate Remote, and I'm specialized in working with agency and technology businesses, helping them build more engaged and effective remote teams, helping leaders be more effective in this virtual world, and developing their skills. So I previously worked in Shopify, so I'm very familiar with the e-commerce space, and I think it's a great opportunity for businesses in terms of remote working, both merchants and partners alike. So let's get started into some of the content. I think one of the first things that I want everybody to start focusing on as a priority is themselves during this time. I've worked with a lot of leaders, especially over the last week, who really had to focus on that. And the reason is we're giving so much as business owners, as managers, as people, as partner managers. We're giving to people, we're listening to people, we're helping people, we're supporting people, but we can't pour from an empty glass. So we really need to prioritize our own self-care, our own well-being during this time of uncertainty. And I think that's one of the most important things, especially when we're working from home. And I think, calling it out, I don't think anybody is at 100% productivity right now. So maybe it is that you're homeschooling your kids, maybe that your spouse is at home and you're sharing an office or the kitchen table. Maybe it's that you're looking after somebody that's maybe not well at the moment, but there's so much going on. So suddenly we've just completely shifted to this unknown where we've brought work inside our front door and everything else is inside that door as well. So we have to really look after ourselves. So I want you to kind of think about some of the things that you need to prioritize for yourself. So as a leader, as an employee, how can you show up at your best? How should you schedule your time? And it's about thinking in new ways. I've worked with leaders who previously worked 8 hours a day in an office who are now working 4 hours at nighttime when their kids are in bed. And I think it's being able to adapt is actually a skill. So if you are trying to do what you were doing in the office and it's not working and you're feeling frustrated, it's probably because that doesn't translate over to these circumstances right now. So practice that little bit of self-kindness. Think of new ways that you can work. I think that's one of the most important things to do right now. And what are the things that you need to do for yourself in order to show up for your team? What are the things that you need to prioritize? For some people, it's working out, it's walking, it's getting time offline, maybe it's meditation, whatever it is that makes you feel at your best, you need to start doing that and prioritizing that as your non-negotiable. So what are the non-negotiables in your life that can help you manage yourself, your workload, and everything else that's going on in your home over the next couple of weeks? And I think the other thing is around healthy boundaries. So healthy boundaries are really put in place to protect us and our energy. And I think a lot of people maybe are struggling with that right now. I see that with my clients because they might be overworking. There's nothing else to be doing. So maybe they're working too much. Maybe they're available at all times. Maybe they're doing emails at all times. Maybe it is that they need to create some boundaries around internal communication around the team. Maybe they have Slack on their phone, emails on their phone. So it's all of that noise that's going on all of the time. So you need to ask yourself, what are those healthy boundaries that you can set for yourself? Maybe it's, even to do with the media and the news and watching things about what's going on. So I think those boundaries are really important for us as leaders to lead by example, and then educate our team on how they can do the same for themselves, because we all need those healthy boundaries right now. They're really, really important. So think about yourself first. If you're not at your best, you can't serve your clients, you can't serve your partners, and you definitely can't serve your team. So what are the things that are going to give you energy over the next couple of weeks? I think leadership is, this is one of my favorite quotes. In the past, leadership was about muscles. Now they're about brains, but in the future, they're going to be about the hearts. The future that they're alluding to is now. And I think as leaders, we really need to show up with compassion, with empathy, to our team, to our clients, to everybody, because right now, that's really all that we have, right, is that human connection. So we need to tap into that a little bit more. And I'm going to give you some tips and tricks on how to build that empathy as a leader in online environments. So first of all, I want to talk about communication, and communication expectations and boundaries. And I think this is really important for your team as a foundational level. I think as leaders, what we need to do is we really need to establish what the key priorities are on an organizational level and on a team level. Once we're clear on the priorities and we have clearly communicated that to our team know what they need to be working on over the next couple of months. Maybe it's a case that, they're not, some of the priorities have changed or the workload isn't as heavy. But once you can really communicate what key priorities are, people will be better able to manage themselves, their time and their workload. So they know what's expected of them in that sense. But I think for you as a leader, it's really important in virtual environments to establish expectations. And the thing is with expectations is if we don't communicate them, we end up getting frustrated because nobody's living up to our expectations. So we really need to spend some time saying, okay, what do I expect to see from my team on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? How do I expect them to show up online? It's something as simple, and I'll give you an example. I spoke with a client last week who had recently transitioned to remote, like all of us, and this particular leader was very frustrated because nobody had turned their video cameras on in a team sync. However, she did not set that expectation for her team that they want to make sure that everybody has a big enough opportunity to see each other and engage with each other. So once that was explained to the team, everybody knew what was expected of them. And I know that's a super simple example, but it just shows how when you don't communicate those expectations, how things can, miscommunication and frustration arises. So as a leader, you need to get really, really clear on that. I think one of the first questions is really asking yourself, are there any gaps in communication with the team at the moment? So based on those priorities that you have set out, what information do you need from each team member or from your team? What does that look like? Are there any gaps there that need to be addressed? I think, are there any boundaries that need to be created as well? When we work remotely, if we're working across different time zones in some cases as well, people are always switched on. There's always that noise. And I think one of the main benefits of remote work is that we have the ability to have deep work. Now, I know this might look different for everybody because people have kids at home, but we have the ability to kind of block out that noise and actually really focus on something strategic or creative or innovative that we want to work on. So we have that ability to really go that little bit deeper and get that extra focus. So what are the boundaries maybe that you need to put in place on a team level? Maybe it's that nobody answers emails after 5 p.m. Or maybe it's that nobody pings each other on Slack unless it's really, really urgent after working hours, or nobody sends emails at weekends. Because what you'll do is you'll just create an environment of people that are overworking all of the time, and that's not sustainable. So what are some of the healthy boundaries as a team that you can start discussing that make sense? Again, what do you expect from your team members around how they communicate with each other? I worked with another team yesterday who previously would have just had conversations by their desks in the office. And one of the new expectations that they've set for the team is that, look, guys, you can connect with each other on video calls throughout the day. Like, there is no limit on that. You have the autonomy to decide for yourself, if you want to have a quick coffee and connect with somebody on the team. But you should be proactive about that and reaching out to people. So that's the expectation, but then you have the autonomy to build that around what works for you. So I think that's really important. And I think just thinking about what would great communication look like. Sometimes I think it can be really helpful for us to look at what really worked in the office environment and how we can translate that into remote environments. And it's not rocket science, right? You can start with basic things. If you had daily stand-ups in the office in the morning with your team, then you can bring that into Slack. If you use Slack, you can actually automate that on Slack. You can also automate it on Google Chat, that you send those 3 questions on, a daily basis in the morning for the team to answer. So it's looking at, you know, it's not reinventing the wheel here. It's looking at what really works for your team and how you can translate that into remote environments. So get clear on the different touch points of communication. Maybe it was that town halls or company halls worked really well for the company, and you did that on a monthly basis in the office. Well, host one online, use Zoom, use Google Hangouts. So look at what's already worked, I think is really key. So I want to hear from you guys in the chat window. Like, talk to me about communication on your remote team right now. What does great communication look like? What are some of the best practices that your remote team can follow?
I know on just on that point, just having seen what some of the teams in Klarna have been doing over the past week. There's some teams who are even just keep Hangouts open for the whole team, you know, pretty much all day. So where you used to maybe just being able to turn around and chat to somebody, you've got Google Hangouts open now the whole time, and people are just sort of talking and communicating constantly. Yeah. So I guess but you know, it depends on sort of skill set and what sort of role you're in as well, I guess.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does, Rob. Let's see, do we have any Hangouts and voice communications as much as possible? People can get lost behind Slack. And that's the thing. I think with video calls, you can see how a person is doing. We communicate so much through our body language, through our eye contact, through our tone of voice. We don't get that in written communication. So you can see, you know, if somebody's not looking their best.
I think there's actually some research. Oh, there's one of the issues of working from Wi-Fi and lag. I was just going to say there was some research, I think it was announced yesterday, which actually says, like, just having a FaceTime open or a Google Hangouts or whatever it is, being able to see somebody else's face or who's at the other end of the screen is actually really good for you mentally, as opposed to just, as you say, having the camera off and not seeing who's at the other end.
Yeah. And the thing is, you know, it's not that it has to take up a huge amount of time either. Like, you can have micro meetings stacked, you know, throughout the week. Maybe it's a 5-minute sync on something, quick cup of coffee together. You know what, I'm going to grab lunch now. Do you want to maybe jump on a Zoom call and eat together? So it can be little micro meetings that really make the impact and keep the team connected. But I think, you know, really over communication is kind of important right now for new teams that are going through this. Not to say that you have to be on a Hangout call all day. You know, that doesn't work. It's giving people the autonomy to make decisions themselves around that. But, you know, over communicating, even as employees, communicating what we're working on, communicating what's working, even what's working with routines, with schedules, with managing your time, with staying focused. As leaders, we really need to facilitate those discussions right now, because no matter who you are, you're feeling vulnerable. So to create that safe space for your team to openly share and talk about how they're doing, checking in with them. Like, every single meeting I'm saying right now should have a buffer of 5 to 10 minutes at the start to check in with people. Hey, how's it going? I know the kids are at home. How are they doing? How's homeschooling going? So you're really just building those relationships and connecting with people, because we're all sharing similar pain right now, I guess. Lots of great ideas coming in. Penny says we're doing small department meetings each morning with the wider whole company meeting at the start and the end of the week, all on Hangouts, videos to keep the human contact going. It's working well so far. That's great, Penny. And Edward says we have a tradition of Fat Fridays, which meant junk food in the office. We've moved this virtually for people to jump in and out. However, we advise it isn't an obligation to avoid additional stress. And that's a great point, Edward, you know, to give people that opportunity to join if they want, but it's not mandatory, right? So, you know, because you don't really know what's going on, but it's there as an option. I've had clients do that around lunch times as well. They've set up a lunch and learn. Whoever wants to join, whoever wants to talk about something that they've learned about, whether it's about work, inside work, outside work, and people actually do join because it's so much fun. But they do have that option. So let's kind of look at it from a leader perspective. To be honest, I think everybody needs to be more deliberate with this, but leaders especially. What do we need to be more deliberate with over the next couple of weeks? We need to be more deliberate with transparency as to what's happening on a company level. People are concerned. They're concerned about their jobs. They're concerned about the future of their work. They're concerned about a lot of things. So how can we be as transparent as possible from a company level? I think for leaders, especially, to be transparent around how they're feeling about it, how they're managing themselves, the things that they've learned over the last couple of weeks, whether that is going through challenges or managing your time. But I think being transparent around the journey is really important. So we need to communicate, we need to lead by example, we need to look at expectations and make sure they're clearly communicated for the team. While there is that level of flexibility right now, we still have to have those best practices and structure to support the team in functioning. And regular updates from a company level as well. Updates on what's happening, what's working well, what isn't, what's changing, why it's changing. Keeping people in the loop is really important. I think on an organizational level, if you can do that in a couple of different ways, maybe send an email around updates, maybe host a virtual town hall, and then post in the all hands channel on Slack. So there's 3 different touch points for everybody. Building interpersonal relationships is one of the most important things that we can do right now in order to build empathy and compassion as leaders, as employees. I think the first thing is giving people the time. Making sure as a leader that you do have an open door policy over the next couple of weeks. Making sure that your employees understand that, if there's anything you need to talk about over the next couple of weeks, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if there's any blockers that I can remove for you, jump on a call. My calendar is open. And I think making that time is really, really, really important right now. I think remembering what's going on in people's lives right now, remembering that, Mary has a 2-year-old and a 5-year-old at home, remembering that somebody else, their spouse has just lost a job. So remembering what's happening, not just around the workloads and the to-do lists. Seek to understand, not to be understood. I think that's one of the most important things that we can do when we have conversations with people, to build that level of empathy. Obviously, that social time is really important as a team. We're going to go into some ideas in a little while. And I think, thanking people, the appreciation and recognition. So appreciation and recognition is the second highest contributor to performance of employees and teams. So taking time to appreciate and recognize good work, taking time to recognize when somebody has really lived into the values of your company, I think is a really important at this stage. And then finally, listening. Listening is really, really important and can be difficult to do for a lot of people, especially when we have so much going on. I think one of the most important things as a leader that can really make you more effective in kind of coaching your employees and listening to them over the next couple of weeks is asking open-ended questions, and asking that on a team level and an individual level. Asking things like, how can we support each other better as a team? So it's not yes, no answers. It's bigger questions that lead to people thinking on a different level. That's really going to be effective in the conversations that you have. So again, it's not looking at reinventing the wheel. We're all leaders. We all are where we are because we have strengths as leaders. So looking at the strengths that you have as a leader, what can support you in effectively supporting your team over the next couple of weeks? What are your strengths as a leader, and how can that support you in being a great leader to your newly formed remote team? If you're happy to share, I'd love to see that. If not, that's okay too. But I think it's understanding and just reflecting on that a little bit, because we all have our own unique experiences, our own backgrounds, and we all have our own strengths. And I think, for leaders to ask themselves, what do I bring to the table that's different? What do I do really well that other people find difficult to do? What skills have helped me overcome obstacles and challenges in the past? And how can I bring that into my leadership style and into my team right now when they need it the most? You know, we haven't had a global pandemic before, but I can bet that you faced uncertainty and change in your life at some point, like all of us. It's what makes us human. So think about times in the past where you faced that and how you can bring that into your everyday, into your discussions now, into your leadership style, in order to support your team. Edward says honesty, support, great emotional intelligence, and more importantly, understanding the power of internal networking across all levels. I think that's great, you know, especially the point around, you know, actually all those points out are great, but yeah, internal networking across all levels. This is a time for you to really get to know your teams and the people in your company a lot deeper, if you can make the time for it.
There's a couple of comments just on comms and that side of things as well. So Pete said .digital they're having a 9 a.m. team call every morning. Everyone's on camera, quick chat just to start the day, and that's been really good. What has Mark said? So they've been promoting a 30-minute hangout or happy hour session at the end of every day just to keep morale up and have a bit of a chat with that side of things. I think that's something that's really important, actually, like the social aspect of it all. Like we're not going for beers after work, or from my perspective, linking up with partners most weeks. So it's like, what else can we do sort of in this virtual environment that's gonna help with that sort of stuff. And there was a company we had, there was a load of the team jumped on a Google Hangout for Paddy's Day and had a few beers on Paddy's night. So it's things like that I think we just need to be doing, and I think as Mark said, really helping with morale and keeping spirits up.
Yeah, absolutely. I've had some of the best nights in with my team in the past over a Google Hangout, having a beer on a Friday after work. It's not going to be for every team, but if it's something that was really important to your team culture on a weekly basis or a monthly basis, then you should really be looking at how you can transition that into online. I think the other thing to note is that everybody's not going to feel automatically comfortable with this, and I see some leaders that have implemented different social activities, whether it's lunch and learns, whether it's hanging out, whether it's having coffee together, and team discussions. And some people aren't used to being in front of a video camera, so they might not feel comfortable talking about their feelings or how they're doing or any of that, through a computer screen. I think over time people will start getting more comfortable, but also I think for leaders to really reflect on, what type of people do I have on my team? Are they, comfortable openly sharing and talking, or are they like written communication? They don't feel comfortable doing that. For example, one great thing that I've suggested to one of my clients yesterday was, he has a lot of developers on his team. They don't really like to talk too much, about how they're feeling or checking in. So instead of having a discussion around that, what they do is they say, okay, everybody go on to Giphy and find the Giphy that would summarize or say how you feel right now, and post it in the chat window. And let's all check in with each other through the power of images or videos. Yeah. So it's doing that in a different way that makes your team feel comfortable. And I think different things like that can really be effective, because yes, you're having a bit of a laugh, but you can also see, wow, somebody is actually pulling their hair out. I'm going to message them after this and say, are you okay? Do you want to have a chat? Yeah. So it's great to get the pulse of how the team are actually doing.
Yeah, it's a good shout. What did Michael say? Daily stand-ups within projects, and this works well. Many virtual team lunches. They were going to do Backy D's this week, but obviously that's not happening.
I know. Actually, they closed. I think they closed. I'm in Ireland, by the way. I think they closed it on Monday at 7:00, and there was like queues, like they had to direct traffic. I'm like,
get one last burger in,
one last Big Mac. So look, as best practices for leaders, I think we're all in agreement, looking at the communication needs within your team, the wants, the wishes. I think when it comes to social interactions, asking your team what works best for them is the most effective thing to do, because we could sit here and come up with all of these ideas, but if it doesn't resonate with our team, then they're not going to engage in it. So asking them the questions, what are your ideas around how we can get together as a team and have a bit of fun over the next couple of weeks, and seeing what they come up with. and then allowing them to implement it, because that's going to be more effective. They're taking responsibility for that. Exploring that time, making sure social interactions on a regular basis, and making sure that you have expectations with a clear purpose to make sure that everybody is aligned on how they show up online. So let's talk a little bit about company culture. Company culture is now more important than ever. And I think we really need to go back to the values or the behaviors of our company. What is it that is that rallying point in our business, that compass, that glue that sticks everybody together? What is that? And how can we really focus on that to keep people engaged and motivated over the next couple of weeks? I think it's going back to those values, and it's recognizing and appreciating them on a daily basis. So I'll give you an example. One of my clients has a couple of different company values. We'll take ownership is one of them. And what they do is they set up a Slack channel where anytime somebody lives into the value of ownership, whether they've created a project or helped somebody or whatever it was, they recognize it in that Slack channel and hashtag it, like hashtag ownership. So people are getting recognized for living into those values and behaviors that do make up the company. And that's the rallying point. So it's really important that you really look at, and maybe some companies here haven't really defined what their company culture is. And that's okay too. Maybe it's about taking some time to actually discuss what the company culture is and try and define it as a team and say, how can we use this as a way to keep us all together, to keep the spirits high on the team. We've set up a Slack. Janka says we've set up a Slack channel where pets and kids are incorporated into our daily work-life balance. It helps with the expectation on juggling kids and work. I think that's such a great idea. And I personally love when I see somebody's spouse or kid or cat or dog in the background, because it's like, we're all human. Like, it happens to me too. And I just think now more than ever, we need to show up authentic, and, even I spoke with another person that works in partnerships, and, they say they absolutely love when their partners bring their kids onto the call because they have kids at home as well. So I think it's accepting that now, and it's showing up to say, yeah, that's totally normal, right?
Yeah, that's the thing. We are all at home at the end of the day, right? I had it this morning. My dog jumped onto a call. Nobody knew I even had a dog.
I know, it's great though, and I think we need to show up. Like, work and home are so intertwined right now. So it's not that we can separate them really. We need to work out how we're going to balance the two. So I think it's actually, yeah.
I was just going to say on that, like, how have you got any advice on how people can sort of switch off and shut down at the end of the day? Because I think it's really easy just to get caught up in work, and before you know it, it's 7 or 8 o'clock, and you've not had a break. So yeah, anything you could share on that side of things would be ace.
Yeah, I think it comes down to those healthy boundaries, and it comes down to you asking yourself, yes, okay, I could do emails or work for an extra 3 hours tonight, but what is that going to give me? Is that going to sustain me for the long term? I think one of the most important things you can do around that is around accountability. So maybe you have a spouse at home or a flatmate at home, or I don't know, somebody at home anyway that maybe could hold you accountable to that. That could say, okay, the alarm is gone, it's 6 p.m, it's switch off work time. What have we planned for the evening? And I think having accountability, but also team accountability, it's, are you going to set the expectation that nobody works after standard working hours? Nobody should really be online after standard working hours. And are you as a team going to hold each other accountable? So if you ping me at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday night, am I going to say, Rob, thanks for the ping, however, we're setting some healthy boundaries as a team? And also log off. So it's, are we going to hold each other accountable to that? Jamie says, good way to switch off at the end of the day, laptop away. If it is on the kitchen dining table, change clothes, pour G&T. Yeah, that sounds good. Sounds brilliant. Have we any other questions in the...
So Pete's mentioned, he said the Manchester office started playing Who Lives in a Fridge like this. One person collects all the team fridge pics and shares on Slack at lunchtime every day. It's gone viral in the whole company.
Brilliant.
Nice. There were a few other questions that came up. in advance of the sessions. Can you share any advice on dealing with interruptions, especially now with most kids at home and possibly partners working from home as well?
Yeah,
I guess it's something you just got to deal with, isn't it? Like it's part and parcel. We're working at home, and the reality is, as I say, dog's going to come into the room, or the doorbell could go because there's a delivery. It's you know, it's something that's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, you know, if you do have kids at home, it is definitely challenging. But you know, again, it comes back to readjusting your routine. Like, it's probably not going to make sense that you work 9 to 3, because that's when kids are, you know, up and about and most active. But maybe it makes sense that when they have a nap during the day, you get an hour done then. Maybe you get an hour done before they get up in the morning, and maybe you get 2 hours done when they go to bed. So I think it's, you know, it's about adapting, you know, and trying to figure it out for yourself. And I think if you can communicate that with your team, that they understand, and you understand your priorities, you know what you need to be doing, and you're communicating well and being transparent about what you're doing, then there should really be no issue. The work is still getting done. So I think it's, you know, sitting down and actually saying, right, what's not working, and what is a new routine that I could maybe start from tomorrow that might work a little bit better. I think also interruptions is not just kids. Interruption is social media. Interruptions is, you know, going on websites. It's the news, because, you know, it's everywhere now. So it's, you know, what are some of the things that you need to be strict with for yourself? So something that I like personally is time blocking. So understanding my priorities and blocking out time at a time that suits me, to focus on that. And when I see something in the calendar, that means to me that I'm putting the phone on do not disturb, that I'm shutting down all applications, and I'm doing just that for the next hour. And it's training your mind to do that. But again, at the same time, I think we need to practice that little bit of self-kindness right now, because, as I said, nobody's at 100% productivity, you know, and it's no point in saying, I think it's this week, especially in the next couple of weeks, there's no point in saying this can be a really great opportunity and this is how you should set your time. I think what people need to do right now is just, you know, do their priorities and focus on themselves and look after themselves and try adapt to this new way of working. I think in a couple of weeks, when we have settled into all of this, then we can start looking at, you know, how teams can build more of an opportunity around this, etc. So I'll quickly finish. I've about 3 more slides left that I'll quickly finish on. As we kind of said around remote team culture, I think that's really, really important right now. And some things that you can ask yourself is, you know, what company values and behaviors should your team really live into right now? What's really important? You know, whether that's empathy, if that's a company value, how important is that right now? So really looking at that. And I think as leaders, it's normalizing the discomfort in changing work environments. Saying that, hey, I know that we've all just suddenly worked from home, and I know we're all feeling a little bit uncomfortable with what's going on, and that's okay. We are all feeling it. Let's just call it out. I think when we can normalize the discomfort in doing something for the very first time, then we kind of accept that, this is why I'm feeling a little bit panicked, or this is why I'm feeling out of sync, or this is why I'm feeling frustrated. So when we can call out the fact that we're all doing this for the first time, then we can kind of start to normalize it and get through it and put it into perspective. So virtual socializing, we've heard some great ideas from everybody around what they're doing. It requires out of the box thinking. It really is around challenging existing mindsets. You know, some people, like you said, Rob, you know, having beers on a Zoom call. I've said that to somebody before and they laughed. They thought that was the silliest thing ever. So it does really require us to think a little bit differently, you know, and challenge all perspectives. These are some of the ones that I personally really like, but again, it's going to be different for every team, and your team are probably going to have really great ideas. Maybe it's a case that this is their, you know, that you ask them today, guys, what can we do to support each other? You know, let's all share in the Slack channel by Friday, and we can choose one or things. We can all vote of which one we like best. So it's a democratic voting style, so it's fair. And let's try implement something different every week for us. And it becomes a fun project. I personally love, the walk and talk meetings. I don't know if everybody can still go outside right now. We can in Ireland. We can still. I'm in the countryside, so I love saying to somebody else, let's have a quick sync, but why don't both of us go for a quick walk while we're doing it? And we're both getting out. We're holding each other accountable to a little bit of exercise, and we're also somewhere different. We're getting out from behind the desk, from behind the screen. Spotify team playlist, lunch and learns. Like, this is a great time for people. People are reading a lot of books. They're listening to a lot of podcasts. They're learning a lot more. They're probably reading a lot more. So how can you encourage that on the team? Do you have budgets in place to support your team around learning and development? Maybe there's some suggestions around that for the team on how they could use that. Are there different courses they could use? Is there new knowledge that somebody has got from a podcast this week that they'd like to share with the team over lunch? So it's just looking at those little micro ways that we can connect with people that keep things really fresh and alive, I think is really important. What's your favorite social interaction, Rob?
It's got to be beers. that's my job.
Love it. Yeah. Love it.
Yeah. But there's some really nice ideas in there.
So I before we get into any more questions, I want to hear from you guys in the chat window, and I want you to share with each other. What is one action that you can take today based on everything that we discussed today that will help your remote team? What's one thing that you guys are going to do? Walk and talk. Hi, Colin. Yeah.
Shame. In the UK now, we're allowed out once a day, so it might be tough.
Yeah, walk around the house, up and down the stairs.
House, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Continue to show empathy. Peter says, yeah, that's great. Joshua says, it's not just the team, but for other friends working from home, we're hosting an online pub quiz to socialize. That's a great idea.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. Quiz is mentioned again.
Samantha says, gifts for mood. Yeah, it's a great way to check in with the team. Check in with everybody. Simon says, team Spotify playlist could be good fun. Gavin says, empathy in Spotify playlists. And Penny says she agrees to switch off time each day. No more evening messages from the boss. I think that's great, Penny. And as leaders, we really have to lead by example for the rest of our team right now. And to not just say, this is what I do. I'm just going to work all of the time. And, people will naturally follow us if we do that. So we need to show up in the best way possible.
Was that play a guess who of childhood photos of us? That's decent.
Laurel says, ask how everybody is feeling and consider personal situations. Yeah, I think, if you haven't already had a group discussion around the current situation and changes that have happened on your team, then that's one of the first things that you need to do. And I think having conversations around healthy boundaries, how people are managing themselves, how we can hold each other accountable to that, how we can support each other can be a great little 15, 20-minute sync that really normalizes the discomfort.
Good. It sounds like a lot of people have got plenty to take away.
Yeah. Absolutely. Any more questions there from earlier, maybe?
What else have we got? So what do you see as the biggest challenge to companies having had to make the sudden transition? And for some companies, it is to a fully remote environment.
Yeah, I think with the biggest challenges for companies that have not been prepared at all, I think is around mindset and mindset adjustment. There's a lot of leaders that would have never even thought about remote. They would have said, no way, I require everybody to come into an office. And that's just the way we've done it. That's the way we'll always do it. So I think for leaders that might not have adjusted their mindset to that has been a real struggle for them. And I've had a lot of questions around how do you build trust on remote teams? And it comes down to the fact that you have to fast track trust on remote teams. And that's just the way that it is. So if you've hired people, you should trust people. And then, I always say a trust should be like the battery on your phone. Like when you hire somebody, that should be up at like 70%, right? Because your hiring process has done all that work for you. And then that other 30% is built over time. But it's built around the things that you as a leader communicate as expectations. So, these are the expectations that I have for you. How can I support you with that, et cetera, et cetera. And then it's somebody delivering on those expectations and meeting those expectations. So I think that expectation piece is really important. But I think, leaders we need to lean into trust, full trust with our teams right now. And if we can help them prioritize, what they're working on and help them set up a routine or a structure that works for them and be there to support them and listen to them, and we have regular points of contact, that's all we can do. That's all we can do. We need to trust that, because otherwise you'll drive yourself crazy. And I've been so surprised at the amount of teams that had that trust lacked. So that's, I think, one of the biggest challenges. But I think in the agency and tech space, I think a lot of us have probably been using a lot of remote first processes already. So a lot of people use the likes of Slack, they use the like of Zoom, they use, project boards that everybody has access, whether it's monday.com or Trello or whatever. So I think a lot of that has been there already. So I think we've been quite lucky with that, really. A lot of companies have been able to really smoothly transition. But that interpersonal relationships, bringing the team together, making sure that they're engaged, is the most important thing that you can really do right now.
Yeah, big time. So, we have got a bit more time. If anyone else has any more questions, Gav says he's actually enjoying getting to know more about what his partner does.
Absolutely. It's about the little things, right? That can give
mine's louder than I thought. Being in the room upstairs, it's like I can hear every word of every meeting.
I know.
But yeah, again, it's just part and parcel, isn't it? It's where we're at for now.
Yeah, absolutely. It is where we're at, and we just kind of have to go with it. And I think it's really important to understand there's no one size fits all with this. It's when you can, as a leader, really tap into the needs of your team and listen to your team, then you can create a remote working strategy that's going to serve you for the long term, that's authentic to your business. And I know there's a lot of content out there about remote working right now, and these are the top 10 tips, and these are the top 20 tips, and these are the programs and software you should be using. And I think that can be a bit overwhelming. So it's really looking at, why would you need more software if everything is working correctly? So I think being comfortable with being uncomfortable is really important as a leader, and being able to kind of, tap into those strengths and be willing to adjust when something isn't working.
Yeah, nice. Right, I think we're out of questions. We're nearly out of time, so we're gonna follow up. We're gonna put some content together. We'll share a recording of the session. I guess if people want to get in touch with you afterwards, if they have any questions or whatever, happy.
Of course, if anybody has any questions around remote working, team engagement, leadership style, how they can start coaching their employees, anything around that, don't hesitate to reach out. Shauna at operateremote.com. And you can also add me on LinkedIn as well if you like. I'm a big fan of LinkedIn, and I post a lot of content on there. I promise it's not overwhelming. But yeah, do let me know if you have any questions. I'm always more than happy to help. And I wish you guys all the best with this. You've absolutely got this. You've got great ideas there. Keep the momentum up. Keep learning, keep growing, keep talking to your employees, keep listening to them. And yeah, all the best.
Thanks, Shauna. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye.